Hey guys, my name is Ismas and welcome to Top Channel One-on-One. So I want to introduce you to this amazing add-on by Mohammad Riaz. It's an index viewer for geometry nodes, and I think it's the perfect add-on for any geometry nodes beginner. If you want to dive into geometry nodes, this is really an add-on you should really look into. Download link is there. You just download this index viewer fields. Just download that, and what you get is a blend file that looks like this. You can see you have a cube and you have numbers that show the different indices. So in geometry nodes, each vertex or each point can be represented as an index. If I go to my spreadsheet here, you can see that it's basically showing the number you're seeing here. This index of your geometry nodes attribute is, I think, the most important value to know about for your asset. So for example, we have different vertices here, and we are getting a number representing the index of that point on the mesh, and it's basically showing you this value. So if I subdivide this a lot, you can see the number increases here, but it also shows you the numbers increase here as well. If I turn on wireframe, you can see that each vertex has got a number here, and this is the node that we're using here. This is the index viewer node that you're getting, and you might be wondering why is this important. So let me delete this. Actually need this back. I'm just going to move this aside and add a new plane. If I have a plane like this, and I'm just going to copy this index viewer node, I'll create a new geometry node, paste that in here, just connect this to geometry and this to the mesh, just like that. You can see now each vertex has a point like that. So if I subdivide this mesh, you can see the numbers increase, and because we have increased the number of points, and hence increasing the index count. So this node can allow you can scale down the numbers if they are getting in the way. And if you go out of, because right now this works in the camera view to align the numbers to always face the camera, but if you go out of that, you see that the numbers are going to be twisted, are going to be facing the camera always, but that's okay. So you might be wondering, why would this be useful? Say you want to delete some faces. Let's change this from vertex viewer to a polygon viewer. I'm just going to change this so that we are seeing the index of each face. Say we want to delete the faces of indices above 1. I can just do delete geometry, and I'm going to connect this here, and I just preview this. Because I'm deleting everything, that's why you see everything has been deleted. I want to change this to faces, and I want to delete based off the index. So index, connect this directly to the selection, and just use a compare node to delete anything greater than the index of whatever I'm putting in here. Now it doesn't really make sense here, because you can't tell why it's deleting. You'd expect it to delete from this, and then just continuously adding the faces like that in that flow. But there isn't a way to visualize the indices, so it's a bit confusing. But with this mesh viewer, you can join this with this, and just turn off show mesh, so that you can see just the indices of each faces. And now you can see that I can now tell that the reason why it's jumping between the different faces instead of letting them continuously as they are is because the indices of this mesh are not next to each other. So you can see that if I just delete any faces above the index of 1, you can see we have 0, and maybe let me switch this the other way around to less than, so that is less confusing. So let's delete the indices that are less than 1. So you can see the index of 0 is deleted. So you would expect that this one would be the next if I increase this to 2. Let me actually change this to index so that it's much easier. Connect this back. So if I change this to 2, you would expect the number to be here, but it doesn't, because the index 1 is around here. So it would be confusing if you're not seeing the indices, but with this viewer, you can really see, and it won't be that confusing. So you can see that this is 2, 3. It's very confusing without visualizing the indices, the different indices here. But with this geometry node group, it's much easier to visualize. It also helps you understand how the subdivisions are working. So you can see this mesh hasn't been subdivided, so it only has one index. If I subdivide this, you can see this is divided 1, 2, 3, and if I subdivide this, you see the indices jump around. So you usually don't get what you expected. Another way you can use this is let's say I use a line mesh. Let me just connect this here. And the reason why it's not showing, the numbers are not showing, or the indices are not showing, is because I have this set to polygons and we are working with a line. So I'm going to go back to vertices. They're already showing. I just have to increase their scale. Now let me change the orientation of this to be in the X direction. Yeah, so this can be very, very useful in visualizing math. So let's say instead of using this delete, I'm just going to come in here. Let me remove this. We can have this setup, and maybe you want to visualize how math nodes work. So if I use a set position here and I bring in a combine, I can use the index and I bring in a combine XY. You can use this to visualize math. So if I feed this index into the Z, I'm basically adding the index value to the Z offset, hence getting that. Now I think I need to bring this after the set position so that these ones are on the same axis, are on the same line. Let me scale this up a bit so that we can visualize this more easily. So you can see I'm adding a value of the index to the position, so that's why these points have been moved like that. And I can maybe even add a math node here and try using different operations to see what happens. So you can use this to visualize, say something like what happens when you add the sign of the index into the Z position. And see, you get this wave here. You can see what's happening to the numbers. You basically increasing the frequency or amplitude. I really wish I had this setup when I was learning geometry nodes. I think it would have really sped up or improved my learning experience. Another way to use this is say you're using the extrude mesh. This was one node that was a bit confusing for me. Maybe I want to insert this face. I've extruded this, and let me change to the polygon view so that I can see the index of each polygon. Let's say I want to re-extrude the top face only. I can come in here. There is an option to just use the top selection, but if you didn't want to use that and you just wanted to extrude a specific index, now with this, let me first disable this. Because you know the index of this face is going to be 0, you can just create a selection using the index, connect this to the selection, and just use a compare node where the index is equal to 0. And that will mean that only this face is extruded. Because this node also produces meshes, that's why you see that this number is also being extruded. But you can bypass this by just using don't show mesh and just use a join geometry where you bypass this so that the join geometry is just so that the extrusion is only working on the original mesh, not on the indices here. So I can still see that this face was the one that was extruded, and maybe this time we want to extrude the face with index of 2. Let's say I want to this time to extrude only this face and not any other faces. There is no way to do that without knowing the index of this. So without a node like this, you would have to do a lot of experimenting to figure out what index this face is. But because we already know, I can just come here, add another extrude node. You can see right now it's extruding everything. But because I know the index from, let me first disable this, from this node group, that this is 2, I can just simply grab the index node, connect it to the selection, and use the compare node to extrude the index where this is equal to 2. So that's the index viewer. I think it's really a powerful node that you're going to find very, very useful. If you're a Blender artist, I would like to introduce you to Physical Starlight and Atmosphere, which is an add-on for generating skies for different environments. This is one of the most powerful add-ons, and you can see that it's used by a lot of studios, large studios. You can see Ubisoft, KTM, Embark, Renault, NASA, and a lot of other creators. With just a single click, you can turn your renders into something super photorealistic. It works with Eevee and cycles, so you know you're always going to get the perfect render with this add-on. If you want to check it out, the links are going to be in the description, and also helps out the channel. So thank you. I'll see you in the next video.